Testing, testing. So, welcome to Exodus 19, a nation married to Yah. I pray that you guys are having a blessed Sabbath. And I pray also that whatever you and your family are going through, that Yah gives you the strength to go through. Hallelujah. Today, we're going to talk about Hebrews 8. Today, we're going to go to Hebrews 8, and we're going to read and walk through Hebrews 8. And without further ado, let's get started. It says, now the summary of what we are saying is we have such a high priest who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the greatness in heavens. So we can see right here that we're talking about the subject is the high priest, and we're talking about, and that's the conversation so far. It says, now the summary of what we are saying is we have such a high priest who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the greatness in the heavens. 2, who serves in the set apart place and of the true tent, which Yahweh set up and not man. So this is this is the conversation, right? It says, for every high priest is appointed to offer both gifts and slaughters. So it was also necessary for this one to have somewhat to offer. 4, for if indeed he were on earth, he would not be a priest, since there are priests who offer the gifts according to the Torah. And right here, we can see that somebody will say, see, if he was on earth, he would not be a priest. Because, and what this is saying is, he wouldn't be a priest like the Levitical priesthood was priest. Because there was a restriction of the Levitical priesthood and its earthly ministrations that were limited because it was restricted by descendancy and an earthly carnal life. He said, but once the high priest died, there was always another priest. After one died, somebody else was take his place. And this high priest, Yahshua, he lives forever, right? After the order of Melchizedek. Because you have to remember that since Aaron, there were 84 high priests from Aaron all the way up to the destruction of the temple in the 70 AD of the Common Era. So if he was a high priest for if indeed he were on earth, he would not be a priest, since there are priests who offer their gifts according to the Torah. He wouldn't be a priest like them. He won't die. He won't have somebody take his place like they did. He is the final priest. So this is saying how we don't need to follow after the Levitical priesthood in the Old Testament, because now he is our new priest. Five says, who serve a copy and shadow of the heavenly, as Moshe was warned when he was about to make the tent. For he said, see that you make all according to the pattern shown to you on the mountain. So you see that Moshe, he saw the tabernacle in heaven on the mountain. And how it was explained to me is sometimes when you are an artist or somebody who is creative, you can see and have a vision within your soul or within your mind, and you bring it to life by putting it on canvas, or you bring it to life by using clay or wood. But in Moses' case, when he saw it, he was able to bring it to life by making it out of the tangible materials that he had. So he served a copy in the shadow of the heavenly when he saw it on the mountain. Right? Six says, but now he has obtained a more excellent servant, inasmuch as he is also a mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. And I was having a conversation with a friend on Friday and we were going back and forth with this, and this, it was just we were both hitting and missing, and we really didn't have the time to talk because I had to go home and get on the highway when he was just coming in, so it was just passing by. But I believe a lot of things he was saying, it was just a misunderstanding, and it was how I used to think when it was coming down to following the law or not. So he said, but now but he has obtained a more excellent service, inasmuch as he is also mediator of a better covenant. And that's what we was talking about, the better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. The covenant, but now he has obtained a more excellent servant, inasmuch as he is also mediator of a better covenant. Genesis 12. Yahshua HaMashiach is not making a new covenant. He's making this one better by, like we said before, um, he is not going to die. He sits on the right hand. He lives forever. That in itself is a better covenant, a better promise, right? The other priests came into the organization. They aged, they got older, they died. Somebody new came, they aged, they got older, they died. If you think about and you remember um, the city of refuge, in the law, it said that if you accidentally killed somebody and you were able to get one of those six locations, which was throughout uh, the Israelite land, you were able to stay there if you were innocent, as long as the priest was alive. But when the high priest died, you had to leave. Now that we have a high priest that does not die, we are constantly, always, and forever, unless we do something stupid, in the city of refuge. We can't be kicked out because our high priest today, he does not die. 7. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second covenant. So I'm listening to the pastor that I listen to, Matthew Nolan, and he's reading out of I don't know what Bible he's reading out of, but he's saying that for if that first covenant, which is italicized, it would literally read, for if that first had been faultless, it wouldn't even have covenant in there. He said, but if it has anything in there, it should have priesthood. Because, like I said, in the first verse, the conversation is about the high priest. It says, it says, now the summary of what we are saying is that we have such a high priest who is seated at the right hand of the throne of greatness is in heavens. We're talking about the high priest right here, right? In 8:1. And who serves in the set apart place and of the true tent which Yahshua set up and not man. So now it's talking about a priest and it's talking about the tabernacle, right? It says, for every high priest is appointed to offer both gifts and slaughters. So it was also necessary for this one to have somewhat to offer. Again, 3 out of 3 is talking about the high priest, right? You can say 2 out of 3. 2 is talking about the high priest, and 1 is talking about the tent, right? It says, for if indeed he were on earth, he would not be a priest. 4 is talking about a high priest. It's talking about whether Yahshua would be like these guys, since there are priests who offer gifts according to the Torah. So 4 is also talking about the high priest, who serves the copy and shadows of the heavenly as Moshe was warned when he was about to make the tent. So 5 is talking about the tent. He said, see that you make all according to the pattern shown to you on the mountain. So 5 is talking about the tent. So we have 3 verses that's talking about the high priest, and we have 2 verses that's talking about the tent. But now he has obtained a more excellent service, inasmuch as he is also a mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. Still talking about the high priest, right? Number 6. And in my notes, I say the first covenant is faultless. This is talking about the people. Because of the people, there needs to be a change for Yah to give us a better covenant, a better chance. What is broken under the law of administration? You can't have a new covenant without having a new priesthood. Usually, when somebody new comes in, like a new coach on the football team, he wants his own assistant coaches and defensive and offensive coach on the field. He wants his own guys coming into the camp that has a better understanding of how he does things. So you're not going to have a new covenant with an old regime. You're usually going to have a new covenant with a new person in power coming in. So the tabernacle was placed under the book of the law of administration. The priesthood was placed under the book of the law of administration. Right? The ministry of service was placed under the book of the law of administration. These are all that have the faults. Was the covenant placed under the book of the law of the administrations? No, because it was broken by the people. It wasn't that it was faultless, it was simply broken. It had nothing to do with the book of the law. The covenant commandment was before the law. So that's why we say in 7, for if that first covenant, which should read, if that first priesthood had been faultless, if they didn't have any fault, there would be no need for a new priesthood, not a new covenant. But since the old priesthood was corrupt, that's why John the Baptist was doing things out in the Jordan River instead of being in the temple, because there was corruption there. But 7, all of a sudden, wants you to believe that they're talking about the covenant. They're not talking about the covenant. And you can see for yourself that when you read 7 and you say, for if that first priesthood had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second priesthood, Yahshua. But since they were faultless, we needed a second priest, Yahshua HaMashiach. This is what Hebrews 8:7 is talking about. It's not talking about the covenant. How can all of a sudden we go from talking about the high priest and tents, now on 7 we're talking about the covenant? It makes no sense. And hopefully for those who have an ear to hear, they're hearing what I'm saying. It's talking about the priesthood. For if that first covenant, if that first priesthood had been faultless, don't that make more sense? Then no place would have been sought for a second priesthood, Yahshua HaMashiach, taking place of the Levitical priesthood. Finding fault with who? Finding fault with them, not finding fault with the law. The house of Israel and the house of Yehuda. But the people, because you don't renew a broken covenant when you make a brand new one. Galatians say that once the covenant is broken, you can't add to it. So it can't be fixed. There has to be a new one. So Hebrews 8:8 says, for finding fault with them. Sorry about that. For finding fault with them. With who? With the Levitical priest. He says, seeing the days are coming, says Yahweh, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehuda a renewed or a new covenant. You see that? He says a renewed covenant. Now it seems to be that he's talking about the covenant and the priesthood, right? It says even here, Yah is not talking about having a problem with the law, He's talking about the people, about the corrupt priesthood. 9, it says, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mizraim, because they did not continue in my covenant. Who? The priesthood, the people. It's not that there was a problem with the covenant. They stopped in Exodus 32 and built the golden calf. So when you're using Hebrews 8 to say that, see, this is to show that you don't have to do the law, it's not talking about the law. It's talking about the priesthood. It's talking about why Yahshua HaMashiach had to come and do what he did, because the priesthood was filthy and corrupt. Right? 9, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mizraim, because they did not continue in my covenant, and I disregarded them, says Yahweh. The new covenant is what he is going to do. But if the law is done away with, why in the new covenant is Yahshua going to put them in your mind and write them in your heart? And what I mean by that is what it says in Hebrews 8:10. Because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahweh, giving my laws in their mind. If we're done with the law, why is he now going to put the laws in your mind? I am so confused, because this is one of the verses that you don't read down to. So if we're done with the law, why didn't he say, I'm going to put, I don't know what kind of word he could have used that would have showed tremendously that it was something other than not the covenant commandment or the law. But he says, because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahweh, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim. Back to Genesis 12 again. Why are we talking about Elohim? Why are we writing the laws on your mind, putting them in your mind and writing them on your hearts, if in the New Testament we're done with them? If we're just living by grace, why are we still talking about law? And I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And I was talking to the guy yesterday. He was like, we're under a new covenant when Yahshua comes on the scene. But Yahshua says, I come in my Father's name. And if you see me, you see my Father. Why would he bring his Father up if he was doing his own new thing? But why would he say that he comes in his Father's name if he's trying to change something for his own will and purpose? Why are you talking about your Father when you're doing your own thing? If I have a personal training business and one of my sons is about to take over my business, he will probably keep the title of my business because it's been established. But do you think that my son might come in and change some things if he was trying to do it under his own style, where he changed the room around a little bit? Maybe he'll change, or change the font, or he'll change the color scheme, or he'll change some of the policies to make it feel like it's his own, that he's not doing totally what his dad said, because his dad is okay with him changing some things, because that's why his dad gave it to him anyway. But if my son says, or my daughter says, I want to take over this business, but not only am I going to take over this business, but I come in my Father's name, I'm going to idolize my dad by not changing nothing, because it worked. Because he created this business, it got to me, it lasted all the way to me. I'm taking over, and I just truly am grateful that it didn't fall asunder. So in order to honor my dad, I'm not changing nothing. I come in my Father's name. The same policies he had, I have. Right? So if Yahshua is saying that he has a new covenant, why is he talking about his dad? Why is he saying that I come in my father's name? If you seen me, you seen my father. Who cares? If you're going to do something that's going to be all yours, you're going to put your blueprint over it. But that's not what Yahshua does. Right? And they shall by no means teach each one his neighbor and teach one his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, because they all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, because I shall forever forgive their unrighteousness and their sin and their lawlessness, and I shall no longer remember. By saying renewed, he has made the first old. Renewed what? By saying renewed, he has made the first old. Priesthood. Priesthood. That's what he's making. He's making the first old, the priesthood. Now, what becomes old and growing age is near disappearing, because he's bringing on his new quality of high priest, not corrupted, no sin nature, never to die, to live forever. He's going to put it in your mind and write it on your heart. That's new, but it's the same concept, right? It's the law. And what did we say last week? The law is good. The law is holy as long as you cut the fat out of the meat. As long as you cut the Levitical priesthood out of the meat, right? As long as you cut everything that the Levites did out of it, everything else you're supposed to do. And this is Hebrews 8 saying this. By saying renewed, he has made the first old, priesthood. Now, what becomes old and growing age is near disappearing. The priesthood, the corrupt way of doing things, is done away with. It's near disappearing. Right? And that's Hebrews 8. And that's all we have. This is a short one. So this is just a reminder that this podcast is also on Spotify and Instagram, and I'm live on YouTube as well. So don't forget to like my page and to share my page where it applies. And don't forget to hit the notification button. And if you want to send a donation to my Cash App, it's $MASSEYRR, all lowercase. $MASSEYRR, everything is lowercase. And I hope that you guys are having a blessed Sabbath and shalom.